Hasina Kharbhih, a lady who needs no introduction. She has been one of the epitome of what successful women looks like, a lady who is a hero for her people. Hasina Kharbhih has created the famous impulse model to eradicate human trafficking that thrives on civil unrest and lack of economic opportunities in Northeast India. The internationally recognized impulse model builds awareness about human trafficking and provides rehabilitation for the victims, particularly focusing on women and children owing to their high vulnerability. On today's episode of Empower Her series, let us meet Hasina Kharbhih. So, ma'am, can you tell us about how Impulse NGO Network came into being?
When I was just 17 years old, when I was just out of high school. It all started with this whole process of getting something to be done for the communities, that me and my group of friends who was very actively involved with LTS came together, in fact, to form an alumni, and finally it became the organization. It is an organization that works for combating child and women trafficking. It works under the Impulse model, the pillars under the 6 P's and 6 R's, and it is an organization that look at issues of bringing the private and the public partnership, so that no duplication of no duplication of work. It's being taken forward by other organizations, but we collectively respond to human trafficking.
Okay. What what ignited the spark in you to start this journey?
I think when I was 17 years old, out of high school, I was an average student. I was very actively involved in social development in my school days. And I think that was where the starting point was, that really sparked my first step of doing something. And every weekend, I would look forward to be doing my social activity with LTS, not just doing social work, but also doing activities, which is out of the school premises, reaching out to different communities as per the program. But the workshop, in terms of leadership building, communication skill, I think that really fascinated me to build myself. I was very, very involved. So that is where the starting point that I said I should do something more out of high school. So me and a group of friends, in fact, a very close friend, best friend of mine, Cynthia Chu, we said, why don't we form an alumni? We should be the group to form the alumni. Like, like just any young person, that enthusiasm of doing something was so much there that we decided to form an alumni. We got together a lot of young people who were LTS members, but the alumni somehow became Impulse NGO Network.
Wow, great. So, can you describe how you started with the journey, like the first steps that you took towards this journey?
The first step I would say was looking at social issues that I was engaged personally at school, that every development work was so much charitable. And somehow I always had a question that why should it be charitable? Even as an LTS member in school, I said it should not be charitable. Human beings have right, children have right. So right has to be addressed, from the response of the law that we are entitled to. So I think that was something that was always there. And with that, the gathering that we used to have on the weekends that continue even after school days, that I would say a typical weekend for me, whether it's a Saturday or a Sunday, will just be like today. I would enjoy doing a weekend to be more productive than spending it somewhere. I would be more productive to do, to really spark my way of, thoughts, and get involved with things that I was loving to do it. That we got together and a lot of brainstorming took place, a lot of ideas came together, a lot of enthusiasm was put together by all the young friends. But somewhere along the line, most of the young friends continued their career, took up different studies, went out of Shillong. But I continued to carry that journey because I believe that it was possible and it was something that should be taken forward. And that step, continued to be. And I think that was why today when I look back and then I have young friends and young people coming to me and enthusiastically say, I'm doing something. I think that sparked me back to the days that I was doing that, yes, it's so nice to see more young people getting involved in doing social entrepreneurship rather than it used to be at my point of time. But I gather that some people don't realize that these initiatives can mold your thinking, can mold the career. You can even, you can groom yourself towards a career, towards these initiatives that you believe strongly.
Yeah. So at present, what does your typical day looks like?
A typical day, I mean, a typical day over the years has been completely full of adventure every day. And there's no single day there was no adventure in my life. And I think I proudly say that those adventure, can be challenging, they can be happy, they can be humorous. But a typical day for me starts very early. I mean, I always get up, latest by 7 o'clock. And a typical day for me would be what? Getting my breakfast together. When I was younger, I do everything myself. I think as I was growing up, I was getting some support and some help. And then getting to work early. I start work at 10 every day when I'm back home, going to the organization office. But a typical day when I'm traveling, then it would mean I can start as early as 4 or 5, depending which destination I have to go and what time I have to travel. So they differ. So a traveling day, typical day on my travel day would mean that I would start as early as 5 and 4. But if it's typical day, if I'm back in the house and doing my normal work, going to office, it would mean I would start by 10. So in times of those, it would be different. On a traveling day, I might skip my breakfast because I have to rush to catch my train or catch my, transport, whatever is a car or taking a flight. But if I'm going to work, then definitely I would have enough time, to get my breakfast together. The other part is if I'm in the office, a typical day for me means that uh, talking to my team in terms of ongoing activities, giving inputs to how things are with the work, ensuring that every activities that they're undertaking are up to date. There are times communication on inputs, guiding some of the activity that has to be shaped properly, taking inputs of the day. And we receive a lot of cases of human trafficking where our case manager normally today would register under the Impulse Case Info Center software. So I would definitely sit with her to see if there's any challenges or any updated cases that she's facing problems. So I would do that. With my program manager, it would be looking at what is the next program coming up, how is it shaping, who are the stakeholders we have to come about. Then come a lot of my documentation. Nowadays, I think documentation has been part and parcel of my day. That pulls away a lot of, so it's a lot of thinking, a lot of, brainstorming in myself, because you cannot execute work without having a strategy right, without having, the outcome and output right of any activity we undertaken. So I take a lot of that. Then Skype. Today, I think technology has taken a lot of your time, that your work stretches, in terms of time zone, because we work with different countries. Either I have to reach out, they have to reach out to me, and our team are in different countries right now, whether we are advisors, whether we're having the implementing team, we're having consultants. So very often what happens is I have to also be able to Skype with them, as regular as possible over the week. So that's how my typical day would be. I love to cook, so when I come back home, no matter how tired I am, I think it's very de-stressing for me. And on a weekend, I would love to have friends and have everybody, around, unless until I have some other activities. But over the last 1 year, my weekend has been a lot of traveling because you're catching back work the next day. So I think that also has, it keeps changing every day.
How do you define success, and what do you think is the best formula for a long-term success?
Um, when I was younger, when you start young, success for you is getting your activity executed well. That's success. That's how you define success when you're younger. When you grow up and you are in the process of your activity or your vision and your mission, success means getting a structured strategy which is already designed to achieve those goals are something that define success. Because if you are successfully implementing those activities where it's giving you the platform to achieve those goals, or it is enabling the environment that you're working with or the stakeholder that you're working with, then if it gets successful in terms of acceptance, in terms of implementation, or in terms of adapting the process, that is another form of success because that's where your focus at. As you climb the ladder every day, success can be defined the recognition that you get when your stakeholders started accepting that what you have been taking forward is something remarkable, it's something justified for them to implement. And when things start scaling, from one point of entry to the next, whether it's from a state, to a next state or to another country, that changes. And so success can be defined in many ways for me. And I think I see that as every little steps. When they're successful, that's how I define success.
So, over the years, now that I have been working in the social sector, so how have your relationships with people, your friends, your families, how have like their perspective changed about the things that you are doing?
It's interesting, when I was younger, my friends would think, what is happening to you? You're not there on the weekend. I would not be there in many gatherings that my friends would be having, the picnics and the hikes and the, what we call it, the get-togethers and, going out for a movie. I would be skipping most of that. They used to get really upset. They felt I was very proud. But it was difficult for them to actually understand that I need that time to be involved in what I believe very strongly. Today, when I tell any young person, I said that will be the first challenge you would have as a young person because your peers will always, take you to what they love to do. But if you are the odd one out who comes out from there to do something different, they might find it difficult to accept it. They might find you are proud, you are neglecting their friendships. That is something that has happened to me. But when I start growing into today, after 30 years of my work, things has changed. People accept the fact that what I was doing was worth it. My family felt what I was doing was worth it. So when I look back, I can sit back and smile and say those sacrifices are worth. So they might not come so early, but they can come, sooner or later. It depends how much time you contribute. For me, I think it took more time because I grew up in a generation where technology was not there. And as I was going along with work, after 10 or 15 years of my work, technology came about. So reaching out, communicating to your peers, to your friends, to your circle, to the people you would like to work, completely change. So today things you can balance that because you are able to reach out even when you're working.
Yes.
But then that was different.
Yes.
So I think I've seen both the worlds and I'm describing what I experienced at that point of time and what I'm experienced today. But even today when I look back, when people say, what are you doing on the weekend? Now, weekend for me, it's all about, doing my personal stuff in terms, and Sunday is the only day that I would do my personal stuff. But I think I've created time, I've basically, having these time specific things that everything comes in, very quickly. I don't have to be dragging the whole day to do my laundry, or I don't have to drag the whole day to do, little things, but I just finish it. It's all about time management. So I still do what I used to do when I was younger. I write a lot. I write. I love to write in the night. I blog a lot. Today it's called blogging. Earlier I used to write for newspapers and magazines. And I write poetries. I publish books and poetries. Those are things that I do. But these good ideas come to you very late in the night. To me, they come very late in the night. So that's why I sleep very late.
It's the same here.
Yeah, so that's what I do. But I think people today have learned to accept the work that I do, understand that what I was doing was very challenging, and I think learn to accept the fact that I still find quality time to be with my family. In fact, my nieces and nephew all grew up with me, so I've had quality time with them. So I believe quality time is more important than quantity that you are around. And having friends around for me is all about getting, to share, each other's ideas and catching up, rather than just being there for nothing, So I think that's a perspective that is very different, and I think it changes from person to person.
No, that's true, I guess. So, the quality matters, yeah.
Matters. The quality
of
to me
people,
matters.
yeah.
Yes.
It doesn't need to be a big circle, but
Yes.
a small circle
Small
of having people who understands you
Yes.
and supports
and
you.
supports my
yeah.
work becomes important. And I
Yeah.
think over the years I've had few wonderful people in my life, and when I look back, most of them are very elder to me in age, and I think I can communicate with them much more because they have seen much more than I do.
Yeah.
So they would be able to relate me better, and then I keep getting into that process much more better. But I think if I'm going to be with my age group, to be a change maker, it can be very tough because everyone will be doing different things.
Yes.
You will be the one who's doing odd things out. To be understood is going to be very challenging. So I think it's always good to also have circles who are much more elder to you,
Yes.
because it gives you that space to
And
grow.
yeah, people generally don't understand what we are doing right now.
Correct, correct.
So yeah.
So you're just the odd one out.
Yeah, just the odd one out.
And they say,
And
okay, you don't even
they-
chill out.
They won't understand it even until and unless they will see the results.
Correct.
So at present, the
Yeah, so
struggling phase, no one understands.
Nobody understands. And that struggling phase is very important in a lot of ways when you're younger. And I think for any change maker, it's very important. If you have to navigate a different part of journey to become a social entrepreneur or to become a change maker, you don't have to be the world change maker, but any change that you want to bring within your surrounding, then you really have to be able to get away from that circle, which is not actually allowing you to grow. Because if you are stuck in that circle where your days are controlled by having fun constantly every time, chilling out every time, then you're not going to be able to put constructive constructive thought process to what you would like to do, because it requires a lot of your time, it requires a lot of your commitment.
It's like a huge responsibility also. Correct. When you are working for the people.
Correct.
Yeah.
So because then the moment you commit to do something, it's just not about compassion.
Yeah.
It's about being responsible.
Yes.
Your responsibility will provide you a platform to achieve that goal as a change maker.
Yeah.
Compassion is not enough. You have to strive for that.
So, what according to you are the basic qualities of becoming a change maker?
One is to be consistent. Second is to be very ethical with whatever activity you take up, to be true to yourself, to be committed, and not to get disrupted by your moods and personalities, mood swings, because mood swing can actually disrupt the way you look at things. You might not get everything the way you want to, but to be persistent, to be able to have resilience with things around yourself are very, very important qualities. Resilience is so important, and also to be able to adapt yourself, because you cannot see things just from your point of view. You have to be able to acknowledge other points of view and then mouth towards a goal, and I think being diplomatic is very important.
Yes. The empathy that Ashoka talks about.
Yes.
To be empathetic.
And then I think that empathy also requires you to be persistent.
Yes, true. So, if you could advise something to your younger self, something similar or something different of what you have done, what will you advise her to your younger self?
To my younger self, I will still tell that it's very important to believe in what you do. I would always say that when you start something, no matter how difficult the surrounding might be, how difficult the environment around you can be, it's so important to trust on your own instinct, because that trust that you have on yourself is the most important asset that is needed. I would keep telling that to myself, because it is with those qualities that I've managed to get into this journey for 30 years. If I was not resilient, if I did not have that strength to say that I will continue to do it no matter what, and also to keep yourself, to always be observing your environment and to adapt to the environment that you have without getting out of focus on what you want to do. I'll continue to keep saying that to myself, and that's how the journey has been for me.
So, regarding the education, so what do you think the education system in India, especially, it's very restricted. So, how do you think, what importance does it hold in case of social entrepreneurship? Like, is it like the education that we have, having a degree, people expect us to have a particular degree, do this, do that, and then you can carry on your social ventures and things like that. So, what do you think is the importance of education here?
Well, you're asking a question to somebody who started at 17, who felt that education is important, but it cannot, most of the education available in our country today still restrict us to be innovative, still restrict us to think out of the box. And that is where the challenge is. And of course, things are getting better than it used to be. The whole concept of having a degree, having your postgraduate, having, X, Y, and Z degrees in your life is so much taken as importance in every young person's life that there is no more room to be creative, to be able to explore, because starting young is very important. Because when you start young, you have the room to make mistake and you have the room to rebuild them. When you start later, the time that is there might not be the same as starting young. You know, you don't have to study MSW to become a social entrepreneur.
Yes.
We have a lot of interns and we have a lot of volunteers, and I've seen many in these last 30 years. Most of the people who had successfully managed to become a social entrepreneur, or a person who's starting any kind of change process, doesn't come from a social work background at all. I come from a management background. Of course, education for me was important.
So, as you know, that She for Change is an initiative to empower young girls to take up social responsibility, to impart leadership skills in them. So, if I tell you to give them a message about being innovative in the social circle and being responsible towards social activities, what message will you give to them?
I would tell every young person that social change, the impact of social change should not be valued by profits in terms of money, but in terms of the impact it have on the community is something that we need to see. And to get into this space, it is very critical and very important that we started seeing things around us, become more aware, and also become more contributing. Very often, we don't have the spirit of contribution. When I use the word contribution, I don't expect to become a social worker who give everything and have nothing for yourself. I don't believe in that at all. I believe that your professional skills, your knowledge that you have, especially when you are getting the opportunity to be exposed, you should be able to come forth, to contribute back and create that change process and make things much more better around the people around you. That leadership is very important for every young girl, because you might have, all of us grow up with some aspiration, but it depends on how that aspiration is actually implemented and how do we create a roadmap for ourselves that matters.
uh, like most of the parents especially don't see their kids doing social work, involved in social activities, as a career opportunity for them. So right now the scene is changing. The social entrepreneurship concept have already come in, but it's really now haven't come yet towards the northeast. But there are a lot of social entrepreneurs who have started very young right now. They have their companies when they are just 16 or 14. So, uh, like, what do you think that parents' role in this thing? Like, what do, if you want to say something to the parents?
I think a lot of parents, the generation that many parents come from, academic is so critically at the highest level. They need to start seeing that academic don't make a person, and academic in today's world might not give you the job because there's no jobs that is available. It is getting more challenging every day. We need young people to start creating jobs, creating opportunities for others, so their participation are equally important, that it doesn't make their child less important in their circle, in their family, if he or she chooses, especially girls, when they chooses to do something different. And it's not necessary that you have to have an IAS or a medical doctor or an engineer, or an IT specialist or a software engineer. She can also do something which is creating impact in the community. And that is not completely just social work, it is beyond social work, because creating impact requires a lot of technical skills. It requires you to groom, you require to get knowledge, and you have to get a lot of participation. So it's
Yes.
much more challenging than any education can offer.
And I guess it's better to start young because when you are very much younger in age, a lot of innovative solutions come forward. But
Correct.
when like the society is so constructed, then when you start growing up, kind of these innovations they started getting fade away kind of thing. You don't get to see beyond what society have taught you to see. So I guess it's very important to start very young so that people like young kids can come up with innovative solutions because
Yeah, I mean,
even
correct. I mean, what you just said just now is that when you start young, I started young myself.
yes,
When you start young, you have the room to make mistake.
yes,
You have more creative ideas. You're more daring to implement.
yes,
When you get older, you become more restrictive and less daring, because you become too conscious of your environment, that you are unable to become more, adventurous to try it out. So we have these constructed ideologies in the head when you become 25, 26 in our life. But when you're below that, you're not constructed. You are
yes,
completely doing things, and you're more imaginative,
yes,
and creativity, always multiply. Not that when you grow older you don't multiply, but you become more calculative.
yes. The fear of
The fear
failure.
of failures. So it's so important to start very young.
Yes, we have just come to the end of the interview. So I would like you to say something to the young people out there and to the parents out there, especially like a message if you want to say to the parents.
I would say that it's very important that every parent give young people a chance to grow, and helping them to be innovative and allowing their innovation to see the light of the day, rather than to restrict them from that innovative ideologies that they have in their head. Because very often growth of every child is the space that they're allowed to, be constructively doing things which they love to do. So it's very important that they participate as parents for that.
Thank you.